There is a mystery, an enigma, a truth hidden in the pages of time, veiled from the eyes of the world, a mystery that reaches across generations, moving through the corridors of history, shaping destinies, altering the course of nations, and yet it remains unseen by most. But what if I told you that this mystery has everything to do with where we are now, with where you are now? It is the mystery of power, of influence, of decisions made in the shadow, decisions that have echoed through time. It is a mystery of forces at work, forces that sought to control, to manipulate, to turn the tides of history, and yet a greater hand was always at play. What if I told you that this mystery is not just about the past, but about now, about you, about your purpose, your calling? For every scheme, every hidden agenda, every move made in secret, there's a revelation waiting to be unveiled, a truth waiting to be known, a destiny waiting to be fulfilled. The time has come to uncover it. The time has come to see the unseen. The time has come to unlock the Mufti mystery. There exists a mystery hidden beneath the surface of history, an enigma that has shaped the course of nations, altered the destinies of peoples, and determined the rise and fall of empires. It is a force that moves unseen, orchestrating events behind the veil, beyond the grasp of those who walk in the ordinary currents of time. This force is not random, nor is it merely the product of chance or coincidence. It is deliberate, strategic, and calculated. It is the hand of the hidden architect. Throughout the ages, history has been recorded in the ink of men, but written in the movements of greater powers. Kings and rulers rise to prominence, but they are not the true architects of the events that unfold. Politicians, generals, and leaders make decisions that seem to shape the world, but behind them, behind the curtains of the visible, there are deeper currents, unseen forces that influence their paths. Some of these forces are human, councils and secret gatherings of men who seek to direct the course of nations. Others, however, are beyond the realm of flesh and blood, working within the shadows to execute plans that have been whispered from ancient days. This mystery is not new. It can be traced back to the beginning, to the days when thrones were first established, when dominions were first claimed, and when the battle for the souls of men began. The rulers of old did not move merely by their own will. Pharaohs, emperors, and kings sat upon their thrones, but often their hands were guided by influences far greater than their own. In the courts of Babylon, in the palaces of Rome, in the secret chambers of Jerusalem, the same mystery played out. Decisions made, policies enacted, wars waged, and treaties signed, all seemingly the work of human hands, yet all part of a greater design. There have always been those who have understood this mystery, those who have sought to wield its power for their own ends. Some have sought knowledge of the unseen, believing that by tapping into hidden wisdom, they could control the tides of history. Others have become unwitting instruments, moved by forces they neither recognized nor understood. These men have stood in places of influence, whispering into the ears of rulers, planting seeds that would later bear fruit in the form of revolutions, wars, and the shifting of empires. They have shaped policies, determined the fates of peoples, and in some cases even rewritten the course of prophecy itself. Yet for all their efforts, for all their secret gatherings and carefully laid plans, the hidden architect remains beyond their grasp. The true mystery is not merely in the workings of those who plot and conspire, but in the sovereign hand that allows, permits, and at times overrules those who have sought to control the narrative of history, who have positioned themselves as the master planners of the world, have often found themselves caught in the very web they sought to weave. The empires they built have crumbled, the alliances they forged have shattered, and the legacies they sought to establish have faded into dust. The movements of this mystery have never ceased. What was at work in the ancient world remains at work today. The same patterns repeat, the same forces contend, the same struggle unfolds. Policies are set in motion, leaders are raised up and brought down, nations rise and fall, and all the while behind the visible realm, something greater is at work. The names change, the faces shift, the strategies evolve, but the pattern remains the same. The hidden architect is still at work, guiding, allowing, and ultimately directing the course of all things. There are those who look at the world and see only the surface. They see the political struggles, the conflicts between nations, the economic shifts, the cultural battles, and they believe that these are the true forces shaping the future. But beneath it all, beneath the headlines, beneath the decisions of presidents and prime ministers, beneath the policies and laws, there is another level of movement. There is an order that is unseen, a framework that is being followed, a script that is unfolding. Those who recognize this mystery understand that nothing happens in isolation. Every event is connected. Every moment is part of a greater story. The wars of today are linked to the decisions of yesterday. The alliances of the present are echoes of ancient patterns. The conflicts that seem to erupt without warning have roots that run deep into history. The same struggle that played out in the courts of Pharaoh, in the halls of Babylon, in the chambers of Rome continues to this day. The faces have changed, but the forces remain the same. This is the mystery that has shaped the world. It is the mystery that has determined the fates of nations and the destinies of kings. It is the mystery that operates in the unseen, guiding, influencing, directing. It is a mystery that has been at work from the beginning, moving through the corridors of time, shaping what is and what is to come. There exists a network, a structure that moves beneath the surface of the world, unseen by most, yet profoundly influential. It is a web of connections, of relationships, of voices that whisper in the ears of rulers, of hands that write policies, of minds that shape the ideologies of nations. It is not random, nor is it mere coincidence. It is intentional, methodical, and strategic. This web of influence has been present throughout history, determining the fate of empires, shifting the course of civilizations, and setting the stage for the conflicts and resolutions that have defined the ages. This web does not function in the open. It does not announce itself. Its strength lies in its concealment, in the way it moves undetected, operating behind the thrones of kings, behind the walls of governments, behind the decisions that affect the lives of millions. It has existed in different forms throughout time, sometimes in the courts of monarchs, sometimes in secret councils, sometimes through financial empires, sometimes through religious institutions, sometimes through ideological movements. But no matter the form it takes, its purpose remains the same: to shape the course of history according to the designs of those who pull the strings. It has been this way from the beginning. In the ancient world, kings ruled over their nations, but they were rarely the sole architects of their reigns. Behind them stood advisors, counselors, and high priests, men who wielded knowledge, influence, and control, men whose words carried the power to shape decisions and determine destinies. In Babylon, there were the wise men who stood before the throne, interpreting dreams, giving counsel, guiding the course of the empire. In Persia, there were the Magi, men of influence, who advised the rulers in their conquest and governance. In Rome, there were the senators and secret societies that dictated the policies of the empire, even as the emperors sat upon their thrones. This pattern did not disappear with time, it only evolved. As nations rose and fell, as rulers came and went, the web of influence remained, adapting to new systems, new structures, new ideologies. Where once it operated in the courts of kings, it moved into the councils of governments. Where once it worked through religious orders, it found its way into economic empires. Where once it relied on direct control, it learned the art of manipulation. of guiding without being seen, of influencing without being detected. The strength of this web lies in its ability to remain hidden. It does not seek recognition, it seeks results. It does not declare itself, it simply moves, shaping opinions, directing narratives, crafting policies, and shifting the direction of nations without most realizing it. Its power is not in the force of arms, but in the force of ideas, not in the clash of swords, but in the crafting of messages, not in open declarations, but in subtle whispers that guide the minds of those in positions of authority. There are those who serve as its instruments knowingly or unknowingly. Some understand the web in which they operate, fully aware of their role in the shaping of history. Others are merely tools, moved by forces they do not perceive, believing themselves to be acting independently when, in reality, they are part of a much larger design. Leaders rise and fall, but the web remains. Policies change, but the influence continues. Governments shift, but the unseen hand still moves. This web does not operate on the level of single events. It thinks in terms of generations. It works not for the moment, but for the future. It does not seek immediate results, but long-term transformation. It does not move in the realm of temporary victories, but in the shaping of entire eras. Through education, it molds the thinking of the next generation. Through media, it directs the perception of entire societies. Through economics, it controls the rise and fall of industries. Through diplomacy, it determines the course of international relations. It does not need to rule directly, it only needs to influence those who do. There have always been those who sought to expose this web, to bring its workings to light, to unmask the influence that operates behind the visible structures of power. Some have succeeded in revealing glimpses and exposing fragments, in uncovering pieces of the puzzle. But the web is not easily broken. It adapts, it reforms, it shifts. When one avenue is closed, another opens. When one influence is removed, another takes its place. When one narrative is challenged, a new one is crafted. The struggle is not merely between individuals or even between nations. It is deeper than that. It is a battle of influence, of perception, of reality itself. It is not fought with weapons of war, but with the power of ideas, the shaping of beliefs, the controlling of thought. It does not seek conquest in the traditional sense. It seeks transformation, the remaking of societies, the redirection of entire civilizations. It is not a struggle fought in the open field, but in the unseen corridors of power. There is a reason why history repeats itself, why the same patterns emerge, why the same conflicts arise in different ages under different names. It is because the web remains. The players change, but the game continues. The faces shift, but the influence endures. The names are new, but the agenda is old. The same forces that moved in Babylon, moved in Rome, moved in the courts of medieval kings, moved in the revolutions of modern nations, and move still today. The struggle is the same. The methods have evolved, but the purpose remains. There is a pattern woven into the fabric of time, a thread that moves through the rise and fall of nations, through the decisions of kings and rulers, through the destinies of entire civilizations. It is a pattern that has been set from ancient times, a blueprint that repeats itself across history. It is the interplay of prophecy and power, the unfolding of events according to a higher design, the movement of history in alignment with forces greater than man. From the beginning, the rulers of this world have sought to control their own fate, to establish dominions that would last forever, to secure power that could never be taken away. But history has shown that every empire, no matter how great, follows the same course. Nations rise, they expand, they flourish, they reach the height of their power, and then, without fail, they decline and fall. It is not merely a cycle of history. It is a principle, a mystery that governs the affairs of men. Empires have been built on conquest, on wealth, on ideology, on brute force, on the belief that they could rewrite the destiny of the world. The pharaohs of Egypt ruled as gods, believing their kingdom would last for eternity. Babylon rose as a golden kingdom, believing its walls would never fall. Rome expanded its rule across continents, believing its civilization would never be surpassed. But each one, in time, met the same fate. The foundations they trusted in crumbled beneath them. The power they relied on proved to be fleeting. The glory they saw turned to dust. There is a reason for this pattern, for this repeating cycle of history. The rise and fall of nations is not random. It is not merely the result of human decisions, of military conquests, of economic shifts. There is something deeper at work. The movements of history are not separate from the realm of prophecy. In every age, there have been words spoken, revelations given, insights declared, long before the events themselves took place. The kingdoms of men do not exist apart from the decrees of something greater. Prophecy does not merely predict the future, it shapes it. It is not a record of events yet to come. It is the revelation of a design that has already been set in motion. The ancient writings spoke of the rise of Babylon before it ever came to power. They foretold its fall long before its walls were breached. They revealed the coming of Persia before it conquered, the rise of Greece before its armies marched, the dominance of Rome before its empire was even formed. These were not guesses, not vague predictions. They were declarations given long before the events unfolded, written in the language of eternity, and yet the rulers of these empires did not see it. They believed their strength would sustain them, their wisdom would preserve them, their power would protect them. They did not realize that they were moving according to a script already written, that their rise was not their own doing, that their fall was not a mere accident of history. They played their roles, unaware that they were fulfilling what had already been spoken. Even as history repeats, even as the same patterns unfold, those in power fail to recognize it. They see themselves as different, as exceptions, as rulers who will break the cycle. But the mystery remains unchanged. The same forces that shaped the past are shaping the present. The same warnings that were given to the empires of old apply to the nations of today. The same principles that govern the destinies of ancient rulers govern the leaders of this age. Those who ignore the patterns of the past are destined to repeat them. There is a precision to the unfolding of history, a timeline that aligns with prophecies spoken long before modern nations came into existence. The timing of events, the rise of movements, the conflicts between civilizations, none of it is random. The pieces move according to a greater order. What was foretold in ancient days is manifesting now. The same struggles, the same alliances, the same clashes of ideologies are appearing again, following the blueprint of what has already been declared. This is not merely a matter of politics or military power. It is something far greater. The movements of nations are connected to a purpose beyond themselves. Every decision made by rulers, every war fought, every treaty signed, every law enacted, all of it fits into a larger plan. Some act as willing instruments, others as unwitting players, but none stand outside of the unfolding mystery. History does not belong to the rulers of this world. It does not belong to the powerful, to the wealthy, to those who sit in positions of influence. It follows a course that has already been set, a course revealed in the prophecies of old, a course that will continue until the final fulfillment of what has been written. The rulers of this age believe they control their own destiny, but they are merely part of something far beyond their understanding. The pattern continues, the blueprint unfolds, the prophecies manifest, and the unseen hand moves as it always has. From the beginning of history, there has been a conflict, not merely between nations or rulers, not simply between armies or ideologies, but a deeper, more ancient clash. It is the battle of agendas, the struggle between forces that seek to shape the destiny of the world. It is not a random sequence of events, nor is it a mere contest of human ambition. There is something more, something unseen, something that moves beneath the surface of history, orchestrating, influencing, and directing the course of nations. Throughout time, leaders and rulers have risen with grand visions, with plans to reshape the world according to their own desires. Some have sought to build empires of military might, others to establish dominions of thought, still others to control through unseen influence. These agendas have varied in method, but they have always had the same goal: power, dominion, control. And yet, for every agenda conceived by men, there is another force at work, a force that operates beyond the grasp of human understanding, a force that redirects, overthrows, and brings to nothing the greatest plans of kings and emperors. This clash has played out in the courts of ancient rulers, in the battlefields of empires, in the palaces of kings, and in the corridors of modern governments. The pharaohs of Egypt sought to enslave and control, but they were confronted by something greater. The rulers of Babylon declared their kingdom eternal, but their walls fell in a single night. Rome sought to conquer the world, to establish a dominion that would never fade, but its empire crumbled under the weight of its own corruption. Every plan, every scheme, every carefully laid strategy, no matter how powerful, no matter how calculated, has ultimately met the same fate. Yet the agendas do not cease. The struggle does not end. The players change. The methods evolve, but the battle remains. There are those who work in the open, declaring their intentions, making their goals known to the world. And then there are those who work in the shadows, moving through secret councils, influencing policies, shaping the minds of generations without ever being seen. Their power is not in open conquest, but in unseen manipulation, in the crafting of narratives, in the control of perception itself. It is a war fought not only with weapons, but with ideas, with laws, with culture, with beliefs. It is a war that does not rely on armies alone, but on influence, on the ability to shape how people think, how they see the world, how they interpret reality. Some wars are fought with swords and guns. Others are fought in schools, in institutions, in media, in the shaping of ideology. The battlefields have changed, but the war is the same. For every earthly agenda that seeks to control, there is a counterforce that moves against it. The plans of men seem unstoppable, but time after time, they are undone. The rulers of today, like those of the past, believe their strategies will endure, that their influence will last, that their vision for the world will prevail. But they fail to see the greater reality, the unseen force that moves history according to a different plan, a plan that no human power can alter or destroy. The struggle is not new. The same battle that raged in the courts of Pharaoh rages in the halls of governments today. The same conflict that played out in Babylon plays out in the policies of modern nations. The same forces that moved in ancient Rome move now in the shaping of global ideologies. Those who hold power believe they are the architects of their own destiny, but they are only part of a larger story, a battle that began long before them and will continue long after. Every empire has its moment, every kingdom its rise, every movement its time of influence, but all of them eventually reach the same point, the moment when their agenda collides with a greater one. The moment when the force they did not see, the power they did not recognize, the plan they did not account for, begins to unravel their carefully constructed dominion. Some collapse from within, others are torn down by external forces, others simply fade into irrelevance. but none endure. None escape the clash of agendas. There is a reason why history follows this pattern, why the same cycles repeat, why the same struggles emerge under different names in different eras. It is because the war is not about politics alone, not about economics alone, not about military strength alone. It is deeper than that. It is the ancient battle of control versus truth, deception versus revelation, earthly schemes versus a greater plan. The agendas of men rise, but they are never the final word. The unseen battle continues, and history moves forward not according to the desires of those who seek control, but according to something beyond them, something they cannot grasp, something they cannot overcome. From the beginning of history, there has been a conflict not merely between nations or rulers, not simply between armies or ideologies, but a deeper, more ancient clash. It is the battle of agendas, the struggle between forces that seek to shape the destiny of the world. It is not a random sequence of events, nor is it a mere contest of human ambition. There is something more, something unseen, something that moves beneath the surface of history, orchestrating, influencing, and directing the course of nations. Throughout time, leaders and rulers have risen with grand visions, with plans to reshape the world according to their own desires. Some have sought to build empires of military might, others to establish dominions of thought, still others to control through unseen influence. These agendas have varied in method, but they have always had the same goal: power, dominion, control. And yet, for every agenda conceived by men, there is another force at work, a force that operates beyond the grasp of human understanding, a force that redirects, overthrows, and brings to nothing the greatest plans of kings and emperors. This clash is played out in the courts of ancient rulers, in the battlefields of empires, in the palaces of kings, and in the corridors of modern governments. The pharaohs of Egypt sought to enslave and control, but they were confronted by something greater. The rulers of Babylon declared their kingdom eternal, but their walls fell in a single night. Rome sought to conquer the world, to establish a dominion that would never fade, but its empire crumbled under the weight of its own corruption. Every plan, every scheme, every carefully laid strategy, no matter how powerful, no matter how calculated, has ultimately met the same fate. Yet the agendas do not cease. The struggle does not end. The players change, the methods evolve, but the battle remains. There are those who work in the open, declaring their intentions, making their goals known to the world. And then there are those who work in the shadows, moving through secret councils, influencing policies, shaping the minds of generations without ever being seen. Their power is not in open conquest, but in unseen manipulation, in the crafting of narratives, in the control of perception itself. It is a war fought not only with weapons, but with ideas, with laws, with culture, with beliefs. It is a war that does not rely on armies alone, but on influence, on the ability to shape how people think, how they see the world, how they interpret reality. Some wars are fought with swords and guns. Others are fought in schools, in institutions, in media, in the shaping of ideology. The battlefields have changed, but the war is the same. For every earthly agenda that seeks to control, there is a counterforce that moves against it. The plans of men seem unstoppable, but time after time they are undone. The rulers of today, like those of the past, believe their strategies will endure, that their influence will last, that their vision for the world will prevail, but they fail to see the greater reality, the unseen force that moves history according to a different plan, a plan that no human power can alter or destroy. This struggle is not new. The same battle that raged in the courts of Pharaoh rages in the halls of governments today. The same conflict that played out in Babylon plays out in the policies of modern nations. The same forces that moved in ancient Rome move now in the shaping of global ideologies. Those who hold power believe they are the architects of their own destiny, but they are only part of a larger story, a battle that began long before them and will continue long after. Every empire has its moment, every kingdom its rise, every movement its time of influence. But all of them eventually reach the same point, the moment when their agenda collides with a greater one, the moment when the force they did not see, the power they did not recognize, the plan they did not account for, begins to unravel their carefully constructed dominion. Some collapse from within, others are torn down by external forces, others simply fade into irrelevance, but none endure. None escape the clash of agendas. There is a reason why history follows this pattern, why the same cycles repeat, why the same struggles emerge under different names in different eras. It is because the war is not about politics alone, not about economics alone, not about military strength alone. It is deeper than that. It is the ancient battle of control versus truth, deception versus revelation, earthly schemes versus a greater plan. The agendas of men rise, but they are never the final word. The unseen battle continues, and history moves forward, not according to the desires of those who seek control, but according to something beyond them, something they cannot grasp, something they cannot overcome. There is a paradox at the heart of history, a mystery that defies human understanding. It is the mystery of power and weakness, of strength and downfall, of those who seem invincible yet fall, and those who seem weak yet rise. It is the mystery of how those who hold the reins of power with the firmest grip are often the ones who lose it the fastest. How the forces that appear unstoppable are often the first to collapse, how the greatest rulers, the most powerful nations, the most secure empires, inevitably in time are brought down by forces they never saw coming. This pattern is not new. It is played out again and again through the ages. The mighty fall and the lowly rise. The strongest kingdoms are overturned, and the smallest forces change the course of history. It is a principle that repeats itself in every age, in every nation, in every civilization. Pharaoh sat on his throne in Egypt, ruling as a god, unshakable, immovable. His armies were vast, his wealth beyond measure, his influence unmatched, and yet, in a moment, his power crumbled. Babylon ruled the world, its walls unconquerable, its name synonymous with glory. But in a single night, it fell. Its power taken from it, its greatness erased. Rome stood as an empire without equal, spreading its rule across continents. It declared itself eternal, but its strength was broken from within. And it was not only true of empires, it was true of leaders. Those who seemed to hold the future in their hands, who shaped history, who controlled the fates of nations, again and again, they were removed. Their power stripped away, their legacies destroyed. Nebuchadnezzar, the great king of Babylon, saw his kingdom stretch beyond the horizon, yet he was brought down to nothing. Napoleon marched across Europe, conquering at will, yet he was exiled to an island, his empire shattered. Leaders rise, they amass power, they build their kingdoms, and then they fall and another takes their place. Why? Why does this pattern repeat? Why do the strong fall? Why do the mighty lose their grip? Because power in the hands of man is an illusion. It is not permanent. It does not belong to those who wield it. It is given for a time, allowed for a season, permitted for a purpose, but the moment they believe it is their own, the moment they place their trust in it, the moment they see themselves as unshakable, the process of their downfall begins. The empires of history built their foundations on strength, on military power, on wealth, on control, on fear. But the stronger the foundation they built, the more certain their collapse. The moment they believed they could not fall, they were already on their way to ruin. Because there is a greater law, a higher principle, an unseen hand that governs the affairs of nations. And that law declares that human power is temporary, that no kingdom of man can endure forever, that all strength apart from that which is eternal is fleeting. The leaders of today stand in the same place as the rulers of old. They build their systems, establish their dominance, wield their influence. They believe they have secured their future, that their power will last, that their control is unshakable, but they follow the same pattern. They make the same mistake. They trust in their own strength. They build their empires on foundations that will not hold. They believe they are invincible, that their dominion will never end, and yet, like all before them, their time will come. It is not always an external enemy that brings them down. Often it is from within. Babylon was not conquered by brute force. It was taken because it had already rotted from inside. Rome did not fall in a single battle. It collapsed because its foundations had weakened long before the final blow came. The greatest dangers to power are often unseen, unnoticed until it is too late. Corruption, arrogance, complacency, blindness to the warnings. These are the true forces that bring down nations. The pattern is unbreakable. The cycle continues. Those who rise with confidence, who build their empires on their own strength, who believe they have secured their rule, they are the ones who will fall, and those who are considered weak, powerless, insignificant, these are the ones who will rise. Because the mystery of power and weakness is that human strength is an illusion, and human weakness is often the path to true strength. There have always been two paths. One is the path of human power, building, conquering, controlling, securing by force. It is the way of Pharaoh, of Babylon, of Rome. It is the way of those who trust in their own strength, who believe they are the masters of their own destiny. And then there is the other path, the path of humility, of seeing beyond the illusion, of understanding that true power does not belong to man. It is the path of those who do not seek to control history, but align themselves with a greater purpose. The world follows the first path. The rulers of the earth build their power, establish their control, make their alliances, seek to secure their dominion. They believe their rule is unshakable. They believe they have rewritten the laws of history, but history is not theirs to write. It follows a greater course, a higher plan, a purpose beyond what they can comprehend. And in the end, the pattern will remain. The mystery will unfold. And the great reversal will come again.
Beneath the stars we whisper dreams. A violin plays soft, it seems. The night unfolds its velvet wings. We dance on air like fancy things. A crescendo builds with every beat. Our hearts, they dance in perfect heat. The world is ours in silent screams. We're floating high on whispering dreams. Together we are one sweet song. The night won't be too late, too long. Our melody will carry on in every note where we belong. The orchestra, it swells to life. The strings, they cut the dark like a knife. Your voice an echo in my soul. In every verse we find the goal. Oh, violins, they cry so pure. In every touch we find the cure. Your hand in mine, the music flows. In whispered dreams, the magic grows. Together we are one sweet